Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's program. I'm Kelly Wright. I'm glad that you're here, and I really do hope that you had a great weekend, and I hope you're having an even better Monday. So as we start this week, my opening observations center on what else? COVID-19 and its disruptive impact on each and every one living globally. Here's something that's going on that I've noticed. There is a lot of frustration building up in people who have been told to stay home. The states that have chosen not to reopen, those governors are really hearing an earful from the protesters who have taken to the streets without masks, some armed with guns, and some demanding that you will let us go because you're trying to infringe on our right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I understand it. I get it. I know the cabin fever that you're experiencing. I know the pain that you're going through in not being able to work and manage your own financial affairs. These are really tough times. And in these tough times, there are no clear answers as to how we mitigate this virus and flatten the curve because of mixed messaging that's coming out of Washington, as well as mixed messaging coming out of the medical community. But there's one thing that holds true that I've observed, and that is that we must be strong. We must be able to reach out and touch each other and find that common ground for the common good of everyone. And that means that governors, politicians, the medical community, even you and I must learn to really practice good judgment, wisdom, patience, and the tenacity and the perseverance to get through this together, not apart, not at odds, but finding that common good and that common ground for the greater good of all. And those are my opening observations. So welcome to the program tonight. One of the things that we're constantly looking at is what's happening with some of these cities reopening, some of the states choosing to reopen, and there's always the question mark, is it too soon, too early for the science? And then there's a concern what's happening in our cities where the communities have been impacted adversely because of people of color who have some health disparities. So joining me now is the mayor of Carson, right there outside of Los Angeles, and it's a city of 100,000 people, and probably a lot more than that. And Mayor Albert Robles joins me now to talk about this important issue of what's happening in his city. And sir, certainly California has been hard hit by the COVID-19 pandemic, but to your credit and to the leadership of California, Governor Gavin Newsom and so many others there, particularly in Los Angeles, you've been able to kind of mitigate it, yet there are still cautionary tales that we can all learn by.
Yes. So first of all, honored to be on your show. Thank you for inviting me. But yes, it is. We compared to what's going on in New York and other parts of the world, we're very, very fortunate that it hasn't quite escalated to the level that those other communities have experienced. But we have our own issues here, particularly in Carson. Our population is composed of those that are been identified as being more susceptible to the coronavirus. Our population is 25% African American, 40% Latino, and these two groups have been identified as not only being more susceptible to catching the virus, but succumbing and then dying from it at disproportionately higher rates than the rest of the population. And we're aware of that. We've been aware of that here in Carson for a few weeks now. And we're very proud to announce that after much effort, we were able to get our own testing site that started on Monday. And now we're starting to get our own data because others didn't seem to care about us.
Wow. And first of all, kudos to you and congratulations for being that proactive to step out, not only of faith, but on good civil leadership to do something to kind of stem the tide, because we don't have enough testing in communities of color across the board nationally. And to see you take this step, that is basically a Herculean task, but it also gives you the numbers that are necessary to actually flatten this curve there in Carson.
Yes, 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 and that's critical. You know, you see protests around the country and here in California too, where people want to reopen and let everything go back to the way it used to be. Well, first of all, things will never ever go back to the way it used to be.
Right.
This coronavirus is going to be here for many, many years to come. But at the same time, we can't afford to make more mistakes. There were numerous mistakes made in the beginning that could have diffused and mitigated and saved lives, literally. And, you know, and our governor, Governor Newsom, every day gives a press conference and he gives the numbers of how many people have been contacted with the virus and how many people have died from the virus. And he's always very mindful, as am I as a local mayor in Carson, that these numbers are not just statistics. They represent real people. They're brothers, sisters, mothers, parents, neighbors, friends. And it's daunting when you think that it's in the thousands and it just keeps increasing and increasing. And we need to do what we can.
Yeah, and Mayor, the people that live in your community, your constituents, 40% Latino, Latinx community, and then there's the 25% African Americans. Have you been able to talk to them, and what are they saying to you about not just help us, but uh, have they been upset about the disparity existing in the first place?
Yeah, and they are frustrated that you know, as testing sites have opened up around the county and here around the county here in LA and around Southern California, the nearest one was almost 10 miles away.
Wow.
And you know, and to think that Carson was the victim of a hoax back in January, where there was a fabricated, false public health document that was disseminated on social media, saying that numerous cases have been identified here in Carson, and because we have a large Asian community, also there's some xenophobia going on at that time, and now it's escalating, which is another issue that we confront.
Yeah.
And people were saying, "Oh, it's in Carson, it's here," and our residents were concerned at the time, so we were a little more sensitive to it as it developed, and our residents insisted that we should have a test site. And if you can indulge me for a minute to give you a history,
Sure.
we for over a month we pleaded, petitioned um, our county public health office to locate a test site here in our city. And for whatever reason, they didn't. And it got so much that the council and I decided that, you know what, if we have to pay for it out of our own money, our general fund, we were prepared to do that. And we had literally been contacted by a healthcare provider who had said, "Hey, we'll help you. We'll discount the rate, but you're gonna have to pay some of the cost." And we wrestled with it and was like, "Okay, we have to do what we have to do to save our residents." But literally 2 days later, another healthcare provider came to us and said that, "Mayor, we've heard your pleas on TV to get a test site. We are prepared to come in at no cost to the city
Wow.
to test all your residents." We were the first city in the entire country to test asymptomatic individuals. There was a research study that was done on a very small city in Northern California for 1,600 residents, but we were the first city in the entire country to test everybody, whether you're insured or uninsured, whether you're rich or poor, whether you're sick or not sick. Everybody was going to be tested in Carson, and that was going to be the priority, was going to be the city of Carson. But we opened it up to everybody, and that's
Mayor,
what we're doing now.
that is, Mayor, that's remarkable. And as a result of some of the preliminary testing that's been done, What does this state about your numbers in terms of the coronavirus?
Well, this is the first complete week, and we were going to get that data on a weekly basis. So hopefully today, this being Friday, we will have the information. And so I haven't seen the data yet, but I can tell you that a lot of our residents are relieved that they can be tested because nobody wants to be a carrier. Nobody wants to be the cause of suffering or the death of a neighbor or a friend or a loved one. People want to know. And we're very, very pleased that U.S. Health Fairs stepped up and a nonprofit organization, and we're ecstatic.
Mayor, before I let you go, where do you see this all going? I mean, you've been so proactive in reaching out to help your citizens there in Carson. We need to see more of this. And as you stated earlier, you're concerned about those who are out there protesting because it's almost like they have forgotten their other brothers and sisters who have some disparities. And it smacks of racism, which is another cause for concern because of the inequities that already exist in terms of not having healthcare providers or pharmacies or clinics right there in the heart of these urbanized communities of color.
Yes, I know the governor that's come to his attention. He's taken in the last week become very proactive in trying to ensure that more test sites are located specifically in communities that are Black and brown. He has said that publicly, and he's determined to make that happen. It shocks the conscience what I'm about to say, but the county director, public health director, Dr. Ferrer here in LA County said a couple of weeks ago, as was reported in the media, that yes, test centers have been located in more affluent enclaves. Therefore, logically, it means that they're not located in Black and brown communities. Yeah. And it's unfortunate. The other thing that's lacking is, there's an accompanying component to it is mental health. We've been very fortunate. We have a friend, Dr. Bryant, who has stepped up, and she's now making herself available to provide mental health to our community here in Carson. And she specializes in helping and assisting Black and brown communities. And we need more people like her. And I think that's another, to answer your question, that's another step that is lacking. That's another step that is needed. And there needs to be a more objective, holistic approach to what's going on as opposed to what's been happening. And, everyone is very critical as to what's happening at the national level, as am I. But things are happening at the local level in somewhat similar way, because it's not all being done. It's not all being driven by just the facts and the data, because if decisions were made exclusively by the facts and the data, we would have had a test site long ago. We would have had mental health providers like Dr. Bryant coming into our community long ago, and that's not happening yet. So I'm hopeful that in the near future, it begins to happen.
Well, keep us updated. And again, I've got to just say, again, congratulations on the effort to get testing done. And certainly Dr. Bryant is someone you and I know, Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, doing some good work out there as well. Excuse me as I lose my voice. But I appreciate you so much, sir. And really, really praying for you and your city and all the good things that can happen as a result of getting the testing out there, so that people are armed and ready with the knowledge of how to deal with this. And at the same time, your leadership is like a servant leadership, where you're out there really on the front lines helping your people. So I appreciate you bringing this to light, and we will continue to follow up. Don't be a stranger to this program.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for the great work that you're doing, and stay safe.
Thank you, Mayor. I will. You do the same. And we'll be back with more of the program after this. Welcome back to the program. One of the most important things we're focusing on in this age of the COVID-19 pandemic is its disruption to our cities. And one city in particular that has been hurt is Philadelphia. And as you know, we've been talking about on this show how COVID-19 has impacted the African American community, the Latinx community, and other communities of color, including Native Americans and Asian Pacific Americans. The bottom line is this: there are people on the front lines working very hard. So my next guest is Jonathan Josey. They're in Philadelphia, who not only has worked during the COVID-19 pandemic, but has been working long-term in Philadelphia to help the city of brotherly love. Jonathan, thanks for joining me on the show today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
And, you know, there's a lot that you do, and there's so many titles, but you are right there, as I said, on the front lines with COVID-19. Let's drill down on that first, and then get into some of the other important things that you have continued to do there in Philadelphia. What's happening with COVID-19 in Philly, and how are you addressing the needs there?
Wow. As with most of the major cities around the country and even around the world, we're being impacted by COVID-19. I'm in law enforcement. I'm currently the commanding officer of the crime scene unit here. We have been experiencing, like I said, the same issues. Those vulnerable populations or demographics are being impacted at an inordinate rate as they have been around the country. We had our first police officer that passed away from it. A very good friend of mine, Lieutenant Jimmy Walker, passed away a few weeks ago from complications of COVID-19. So it's impacting us hard, as well as the other first responders, the doctors, the nurses, the firefighters, and everyone else who has to, on a daily basis, put themselves in harm's way and, basically keep this country moving. So we've been impacted just as much as everyone else around the country.
I'm sorry first for hearing about the passing of one of your colleagues there on the Philadelphia police force, and certainly that is quite a loss for everybody, especially those who knew him best, like yourself. So my condolences to you and his family, and yet the work continues, and that's what's remarkable about all of the first responders. You guys are really out there embracing this, running to the problem, as you often do. What kind of impact are you seeing it have on communities of color?
The thing about it is as I ride through the city to and from work, the biggest impact that I see is just basically the same thing probably everyone is seeing, the businesses. And that's where, it hurts the most, seeing businesses, mom and pop stores, hair salons, beauty shops, things that people rely on. And you take it for granted when you have that stability of a job, that union representation and those things. You take them for granted as you go about them on a daily basis. But I think, the COVID-19 has brought to the forefront those vulnerable people, those vulnerable businesses, and people whose livelihood is impacted negatively because they can't work, they can't open up their stores. And that's the most disheartening thing. And especially in areas of color, people, our people, the Black and brown people, we need these resources daily. People depend upon restaurants to eat. Everyone is not capable of making food and preparing food, and they depend upon these restaurants and those relationships and other businesses there to keep those neighborhoods afloat. And it's kind of disheartening seeing those businesses impacted, which have a widespread impact on the community as a whole.
Jonathan, what you said is really valuable insight. I'm interested, what's your take on protesters? I mean, you know that everyone has a right to protest in this country, and certainly we've seen protesters in Michigan and in Pennsylvania. I recall people protesting in Pittsburgh saying Philadelphia is not Pittsburgh, and basically saying what they're having to go through in Philadelphia is not our problem. We want to get our jobs back. Does that irk you in any way or provoke you to think, people, what are you thinking?
It does. It's bothersome in a sense that we have to think of the greater good. And I know that's difficult in the time of trouble, to think of the greater good and beyond yourself. But as human beings, we have to think beyond ourselves. We have to look broader, because everyone wants to get back to work. people want to get back to some sense of normalcy. But the way to do that is not right now by protesting and being out, because I don't think people truly understand the magnitude of COVID-19. There's so much rumor and conjecture about it. And then science still has no definitive finger on the pulse to find out and say, this is why, this is how. A lot of it is backed by medical research, and I'm going to ride with them and go with that. And if they're saying that it's a transmittable disease, community transmittable disease, then I need to keep my butt in the house if I need to. I think it just basically makes it worse. And I think that down the line, it may come back to bite some people.
Well, Jonathan, thank you for that update. And I'd like you to keep coming back to the program and keep us updated on all the great work that you're doing, all the hard work that you're doing as well. We should definitely take that to heart. Before I let you go, your Omega chapter, what are you guys doing to help people in these current conditions? Because we know that the economy has just been ruined by COVID-19, and a lot of people are hungry now because they can't go out and work.
It's absolutely. I am a proud member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, Zeta Iota chapter here in Philadelphia. Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated has been instrumental on the front lines of COVID-19 around the country, man. My brothers are just, doing it up. My particular chapter, we're doing food giveaways. We have actually just collected a ton of food to donate for meals for families. Right now, one of my pro-fights who I love to death, Brother Demas Steffens, Beta Chapter 1980, is trying to procure some PPE for the hospitals, for the nurses, and it's affecting most of the hospitals in neighborhoods and areas of color. He's really, really diligently working, and I can't be more proud of my brothers of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated around the world who are making great strides in trying to work with and combat, the fallout from COVID-19.
Thank you for all that you're doing through your fraternity, through your volunteer work. I know there's a lot more we could talk about. Let's have you back on as often as you can possibly get here to keep us updated on what's happening in Philadelphia and all the good things that you're doing. And I know it's a hard fight, man. So I just want to say, from the outside looking in, I care about you and I really appreciate all that you're doing. And again, my condolences to the loss of your colleague there. I know how difficult that is, and yet all of you guys continue to soldier on and help your community. So we'll be watching and we'll be there to help you whenever you need us. Just call us.
All right, brother. I truly appreciate it.
All right.
Truly appreciate it.
Jonathan Josey, Lieutenant of the Philadelphia Police Department, head of the Criminal Crime Division, and yet doing so much more beyond that role to help save lives and help certainly change the trajectory of our young people. Appreciate you, brother. Peace out.
Appreciate you too as well.
More of the Kelly Wright Show coming up after this. Welcome to the program tonight. My guest is Jim Clark. He is the president and CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of America. They're headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia. And Jim, it's good of you to be on this show because the Boys and Girls Club is near and dear to so many millions of young people. And I might say not just in America, but globally. And yet I know that you are adversely impacted by this COVID-19, as we all are. In what ways has this impacted so many boys and girls and their parents who depend on you, your organization, to help them during the critical hours of the day?
Well, thank you for having me on, Kelly. It's great to see you, and you're an alumni of Boys and Girls Club, so you, of all people, know how important and significant the work we do is. To your point about this COVID-19 virus and how it's impacted us, if you look at the landscape now, or the geography for Boys and Girls Clubs, we have roughly 4,700 locations that serve youth, kids and teens throughout the year. Most of those are closed during this time. However, many have also been able to provide a modified or an alternative type of service in the communities because the need is so great. Things like meal service, there's 1,700 of those club organizations, facilities serving meals to kids and families that would normally attend the Boys and Girls Club. And in many cases, if they can't get to the club to pick up a meal, club staff go out and deliver it. We're also serving youth through a virtual connection or a virtual experience, Boys and Girls Club experience. About 2,800 of those sites are doing that at this point in time. And then we have about 400 or so that are actually open and in place to serve youth of our critical care workforce or essential workers in communities where they would have nowhere else to have their kids go because they are going into harm's way to help and ensure that all of us are taken care of, whether it's at a grocery store or a hospital or other essential services. So many have done that through the guidance of local health departments and certainly the CDC and making sure that the environment is safe. But what I would say is that Boys and Girls Clubs have been here for 160 years. And now more than ever, with clubs doing whatever it takes to help communities and families during this difficult time, we want to be there in whatever form or fashion that we can. And we've seen crises and tragedies before and always come through with a level of service that can help a community. And we'll come out of this stronger, better than we ever have before, but it is a difficult time right now.
You're involved in a campaign called Whatever It Takes. I saw that on Facebook and I was really moved by it to see all that you've just mentioned, but to actually see it in visual terms. And it made me think about this is why the Boys and Girls Club of America has so much value, because it can reach into those areas where a lot of children might be forgotten, and yet you've reached out to touch their lives as well as the lives of the parents. So I'm curious, have you heard any response from parents and from children who are saying, it's tough for me out here. I don't know how to maneuver through this time, this unprecedented time of uncertainty.
It creates a level of anxiety for me and you, for staff, employees, for families, and for kids. And if you think about our mission, it's to serve the youth who need us most. Some of these are coming from the most vulnerable communities, economically under-resourced communities, and financially challenged households. So the kids and teens that we serve are starting out in a position that is not great. And so we have heard a lot of the stories that, unfortunately, kids and teens, it's been magnified, the challenges and difficulties that they face. Right now, food is a big one. And if you think about the school systems being closed, you even think about Boys and Girls Clubs being closed, their normal operating hours and times would have provided meals for all of these 4.7 million young people we serve. And that has gone away. Now, again, in 1,700 of our facilities, we have been opened up to serve meals, grab and go, to-go meals. And that's been great, but it's only one piece. So there's a food desert that's been created and magnified through this situation. Second of all is the level of stress that kids are under. Again, coming from some of the most economically challenged households and under-resourced communities, this has been amplified or magnified by multitudes. And not being able to go to a familiar environment where there is mentoring, where there is coaching, where there is somebody else to talk to, has created more stress and more adverse experiences for kids. It's no question, the research is clear that the level of abuse goes up during times like this, and the level of insecurity and challenge rises during times like this. So we are working very hard to make sure that we can connect to as many kids as possible that are members of Boys and Girls Clubs. And we're doing that virtually. We have a great product called My Future, which is a platform for virtual connectivity, remote connectivity. It has almost 200 programs on it and other tools that staff and kids can use to stay connected and to grow and gain in learning. And that's another piece of what's happened during this difficult time, is the level of learning is going to be decreased. Not all kids have the ability to connect through technology, through devices, through broadband. We estimate between 20 and 60% of kids don't have all of the connectivity that we would enjoy ourselves. So there's a lot of issues that'll happen inside of this academic and learning experience as well. So we're trying to combat that as well and mitigate through having learning opportunities and learning experiences through My Future, which has been fueled by Comcast over the years, and they've been a great partner to help connect with youth and, again, staff so that they can provide program opportunities and experiences for kids.
That's fantastic. I'm talking to Jim Clark. He is the president and CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of America. Jim, I'd like you to stay with me for a few minutes more. We go to the break. We'll talk about what you're doing on Tuesday, which is actually a way that all of us who are watching and those of us who observe what the Boys and Girls Club is doing in America, we can roll up our sleeves and help you. So we'll be back with more of Jim Clark after this. Welcome back to the program. So I'm talking to Jim Clark. He is the president and CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of America. And Jim, for those who don't know, the Boys and Girls Club is not just in America, but you're also global. But we're grateful that you're doing so much work on the front lines to help our youth, especially our youth who are in forgotten areas. As you know, this COVID-19 pandemic has adversely impacted people of color, which would be African Americans, Latino, Hispanic communities, and Native American communities. And yet I know you're right there on the front lines through these clubs. And what you talked to me about, the virtual outreach that you're doing, how can we who see you doing all this work and see so many great people who have come through the club working, how can we help?
Well, thank you, Kelly, again, and it's great to be with you. With the long-term economic and societal impact that the COVID-19 virus is having, and with many unknowns still in front of us, one thing we do know is that communities are going to need Boys and Girls Clubs more than ever to help young people to stay on the right path and build essential skills and fill in some of these gaps that have occurred because of this virus. So we've created a COVID-19 relief fund, and thanks to so many supporters already, and our friends at Coca-Cola, who were the first ones to help fund that fund, we've raised roughly $13 million already to help clubs right now and to help communities right now with those essential services. And other great supporters like Scott Paper and Bridgestone, Comcast, and certainly Charles Schwab Company have all stepped in to help. But we've also brought a lot of our influencers together, our celebrity alumni, which you're one of, to also help with this messaging. Jimmy Fallon did a great job last week promoting the COVID-19 fund. And we've got Shaquille O'Neal, Jackie Joyner-Kersee, Titus O'Neil from WWE, and Mario Lopez, and many, many more that are stepping forward because of the dramatic need right now with Boys and Girls Clubs and in communities. So with this COVID-19 fund, we've also, we're going to enhance that tomorrow with Giving Tuesday, which is a global day of giving. And it's typically in November, but obviously with what's happening here and around the world right now, this is more important than ever before. So Giving Tuesday tomorrow, May 5th, will help support Boys and Girls Clubs as well. And you can go to www.bgca.org/COVID-19 to donate. Here's the exciting part about tomorrow, Giving Tuesday. We have a great partner in GoPuff who is going to match every donation 3 to 1. So Every dollar donated, they will add $3 to the match tomorrow on Giving Tuesday. So it's a great opportunity to make a gift, and GoPuff will match that, www.bgca.org/COVID-19 to donate. So it's a great opportunity for all of us to come together and support communities and these really important services that Boys and Girls Clubs provide now, but then also into the recovery period, because more and more families are going to need these services and these essential programs that Boys and Girls Clubs provide.
Jim, thank you. I think we all can get on board with that, because we know that the Boys and Girls Club, great futures start here. So I appreciate you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Can't wait to get to see you again. All right.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Okay. Well, I'm seeing you now, but physically. God bless you, man. Have a great day, and keep on keeping on with building those great futures in the lives of our youth.
Yeah,
We'll be back with more of the show after this. Welcome back to the program. So this part of the show really invigorates me and inspires me. George and Tandra Gregory, Journey for Life, for joining me once again for strengthening the family. And it's so important that we be mindful of the fact that as we go through these tough times, George and Tandra, that we are doing one thing, looking out for each other within our family. So let me ask you, how do we keep focusing on the positive in the midst of the negatives that could likely happen and have happened because of the disruption of COVID-19?
Yeah, so how we can keep focusing on the positive is that we have to be intentional about focusing on the positive, because the negative things, it takes no effort whatsoever for those to stand out and to stick to our memory, right? And we can become hyper focused on everything that's going wrong, everything that our spouse is doing wrong. But to be intentional about focusing on the positive means every day you have to say, okay, here's something that I appreciate about my spouse. Here's something I appreciate about this season that we're in. And then just try to have like a gratitude journal. Oh, here's how I'm blessed. Here's how my spouse blesses me. And so just kind of keeping yourself focusing intentionally on the good things. I say at the end of every day, you should be able to at least count 3 blessings, 3 things you're thankful for, 3 things you appreciate about your spouse from that day.
Yeah. We when we first moved to New York City, our kids, they were so missing the South.
Oh yeah.
That they would tell people, "I don't like New York City. I'm ready to go home." So I asked them, "Hey, can you say what you like about New York City?" And they said, "Well, we like Central Park." And I said, "What else?" They said, "Well, we like Central Park." I said, "Good. When somebody asks you, how do you like New York City? Just say, I like Central Park." And so for couples, you have to accentuate the positive, right? Eliminate the negative. That's a little childhood thing, but we've got to bring that into our adult marriages and realize that one kind word really makes a difference. Proverbs talks about that. It honchos us to really say to our spouse kind words. And so we like to just write 2 or 3 things down, and per day, just say those 2 or 3 things. Some people really focus on the bad. And during this season, there's enough bad that's going on. There's bad news, there's bad reports, but we've got to know that our spouse is in our corner. They are for us, they're not against us.
Tell us about Journey to Life and how that's impacting couples around the world. I know you're doing a lot with Rick Warren, author of The Purpose-Driven Life and pastor of Saddleback out there in Southern California.
Yes. So Journey for Life was birthed out of our own personal story of struggling in our marriage. And we started Journey for Life because we just didn't know how to make marriage work. So our passion is to equip and educate couples on how to have successful relationships and marriages. No one starts out planning to fail in their marriage, but we found out that you can actually learn and educate yourself on how to have a successful marriage. And so because we struggled when we first started out, we just have a passion for helping couples to lay that foundation, right, from pre-marriage to the first 7 years, so that you can sustain whatever winds come your way. You have that solid foundation to weather every storm of life through. So we didn't have that foundation laid, and we struggled, and almost ended in divorce. But by the grace of God, we were able to figure out and get those tools and work really hard to bring our marriage back around. And so ours is a story of hope. It doesn't matter where you are in your marriage right now, there is hope.
Sure.
If God can redeem what he did for us, we want to help you have that hope that he can do the same for you.
I appreciate you both so much. A lot of good topics discussed tonight, and some great information that you've imparted to each and every one of us. It's a process, and it's, like you said, it takes hard work. And then it requires looking in the mirror and finding out who you are within, so that you can, get yourself together. And whatever we've been through, good, bad, ugly, beautiful, we got to get through it. So I appreciate you so much, George and Tondra Gregory. Journey for Life, NFL chaplains to the Los Angeles Chargers, and just all around good people trying to pass on some good. You've been blessed, and you're blessing others. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you Wednesday for more Strengthening the Family.
That's
Yes.
right. We look forward to being with you.
We look forward to it.
All right. Appreciate you guys. God bless you. Let's keep family strong.
Yes.
We'll be back with more of the program, my final word, and some music. We're going to do the love train tonight, get people on board. Back with more after this. Welcome back, and now for my final word. At the top of the hour, I talked about in my opening observations how we have to do our best to find the common ground in order to produce the common good. I must reflect on what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said. He said, "We must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools." Yes, I understand how painful this time period is for each and every one of us. I know people want to get back to work. I know people want to get paid. But at what cost? At the cost of a loved one? At the cost of someone innocent? At the cost of our lives for the sake of livelihood? You see, at the end of all of this, there's one thing we should value more than our economy, our jobs, our cars, our homes, our clothes, our money in the bank. The one thing that is priceless, my friends, is life. So let's do all that we can to protect each and every one of our lives. Your life matters, my life matters, our lives matter. So I leave you with this, hoping that you've been righted, ignited, and united to not spread fear or anger, but to drop some knowledge and care on each other and share love, freedom, and peace. God bless. Peace out.
Get on board the love train. Everyone's invited. We're all united on the love train. Get on board. All creeds and colors, my sisters and brothers, get on board on the love train. Woo-hoo! It's alright, just give it time. Keep on marching on, keep on being strong.